Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. Exactly 10 years ago I dropped my Bakun International HPA-21 review, which was a reference-grade desktop headphone amplifier way ahead of its time. Rocking zero negative feedback circuit and of course a very wide bandwidth design, it felt like listening to my headphones for the very first time. It was very transparent sounding. But as Bakun International went down as a fairy phoenix, it arose from its ashes as Enleum, which further refined that current drive circuit. Last year I gave you my Enleum I'm 23R review, which is still to this day my reference solid-state headphone amplifier. But as I was roaming the halls of high-end show this year, I came across this little fellow right here, which was connected to a pair of DCA Stealth and HiFi Susvara, and that already hinted about its power capabilities. This fellow is called HPA-23RM, and I set a goal of reviewing the very first production units, and here we are. This one costs $3,000 US. It oversees both voltage and current outputs, and let's check it out if it's worth it or not. While I appreciated that serious look of XDO XD05 Pro and FiOQ7, also the smooth lines and rounded shape of the Shining H7, I do believe that all of them are paling in comparison to the build quality and to the attention to the smallest details of this little puppy right here. I believe that it will outlast a nuclear war. It's a very solid build, it feels very solid in the hand, nothing is really wobbling around. And I do like that its volume knob offers a higher physical resistance, because when I'm taking it out from my pocket, I know that this volume knob won't budge a single bit. We're getting basically the same high quality craftsmanship of its bigger brother I'm 23R. It looks very similar, we have the same wave-like patterns which will be cooling it down, those are heatsinks. Even the volume knob looks like a miniaturization of that one found on I'm 23R. A touch of refinement was added to the wall of fare, making it look unique and beautiful at the same time, reminding me about minimalist industrial designs. It has one of the simplest front panels, rocking a gain switch on the left. We have a 3.5mm voltage output, we have a 1/4 inch current output, we have a 3-level battery indicator, and of course a volume knob, which also acts as an on-off switch. On its back you'll find a USB Type-C female socket used for charging and a pair of RCA and 3.5mm analog inputs. On the go, a short 3.5mm interconnect cable can help you connect a portable DAP, and in an office environment I believe an RCA interconnect cable seems like a better fit. As Enleum puts it, this is their new reference-grade headphone amplifier, which was designed for both desktop and mobile usage, hence getting that R for reference and M for mobile in its product name. It continues the legacy of crafting headphone amplifiers with up-to-date technologies, following the footsteps of the I'm 23R and legacy products. Although the HPA-23RM has a tiny footprint and looks minuscule next to an AC-powered headphone amplifier, it contains not one but two headphone amplifiers in the same chassis, employing both voltage and current outputs. The voltage output is directly inherited from the I'm 23R MOSFET output stage with a simplified version of that jet-to-bias system. The current output, on the other hand, is a descendant of the HPA-21 bipolar transistor-based circuit, redesigned and refined from the ground up with newer technologies. The end result? A 750-gram headphone amplifier, which can provide up to 500 mW of power per channel on its voltage output and up to 1 watt of power on its current output, which should be more than enough for most headphones out there. You can find more about its inner workings in my written review, which I left below. For now, I believe everything is clear, so let's dive in and let's hit some eardrums. Immediately after posting my HiFi ARIA organic review, COVID-19 paid me a visit for the 4th time, and since brain fog was clouding my thinking, I couldn't gather information for an upcoming Enleum review. Luckily, I had all the time in the world to listen to plenty of tunes in the company of these two fellows right here and several planar and dynamic headphones. This is Hibi RS8, a legendary sounding hardware digital audio player, which sounds really excellent. It has an amazing amplifier stage as well. It's a fully discrete amplifier stage working in either Class A or Class AB operation, so clearly a very great sounding amplifier stage. When I connected these two, it was clear to me that the amplifier stage of RS8 couldn't really match the transparency, the transients, and just the sound purity of the Enleum new reference amplifier. These two together actually reminded me a lot about my big rig, which was sitting in the office, which, mind you, is considerably more expensive. It's a Rockna Wavedream signature stack, which is connected to that bigger brother, to the AM23R. These two sounded very close to that stack. I've got the same flow of the legendary sounding tube amplifiers. I've got the same punch in the lowest octaves. The sound was thick and also sweet sounding at the same time. And the soundstage was also very holographic. And that struck me because this is a very small transportable stack, and that is a very big, heavy and expensive stack. And still this one sounded very close to that one. When my fever was over, I went back to my office and I replaced that AM23R with this little fellow. And to my surprise, it had pretty much the same oomph, the same punchy dynamics, the same holography, the same amazing driver control. And I would be hard pressed hearing a difference between this one and its bigger brother AM23R. I'm sure many of you are asking a very important question: what is the difference between the voltage and the current output? So, armed with plenty of planar and dynamic headphones and with plenty of time, I started comparing both headphone jacks, and I started with the Sennheiser HD800S on the voltage output. Right off the bat, I felt that there was more energy, more authority in the bass, more sweetness in the mid-range, and the top octave was slightly rounder, so forget everything you know about HD800S. They were no longer boring or lean sounding, but on the contrary, much punchier, much livelier sounding, and there was nothing of that brightness of the HD800S, so very different sounding headphones in a way. It didn't sound like a traditional Class A headphone amplifier, but very different, especially when it comes to flow of the music, because it sounded more like a reference grade tube amplifier. That is really what differentiates this one from a sea of fully discrete Class A amplifiers, and that is the flow of the music, because it really flows. Moving on to current output, with the HD800S, the volume was higher, so I needed to lower it by 2 clicks for a similar SPL with the voltage output. And while the sound wasn't as battery smooth as it was on the voltage output, I felt a much better grip over the headphone drivers and also a slight boost in transparency and resolution. So the sound wasn't as vivid and as colorful, but at the same time it was grippier and slightly clearer sounding. And when I moved to planar headphones, the difference was even bigger. I used a Meze Elite, I used Kennerton Rogner, and I used the Hyphoman Susvara, and while I really liked that I had more power on top and much more headroom, and finally I could use Hyphoman Susvara on the current output, what I liked the most was not the power or headroom, but the grip, the tight control over headphone drivers, the start and stop of the drivers, the speed, the transit response, and also a much better transparency and resolution, which was more appealing to me on the current output. Of course, you can still use that voltage output if you want slightly more oomph, more fullness of the sound, more organic matter, but I do believe with planar's current output works simply better. When I met it for the first time at the Munich High-End Show, 2 very inefficient headphones were connected to it, which were a DCA Stealth and Hyphoman Susvara, already hinting about the power that was residing within. When it came along, I immediately connected those HD800S by Sennheiser on its voltage output, and maximum I could go was 12 o'clock on its volume position, which translated to a 10 o'clock position on its current output. So clearly, There is more than enough power. There is almost an unlimited headroom with these headphones. And be them HDF100S, Bar Dynamic T1 or any other dynamic headphones, it will drive them pretty easily and you'll have just as much power as you wish. Moving on to planar headphones, I used HiFiMOS Susvara most of the time. And with them I switched to high gain and current output, and I arrived at 1 o'clock position and it was already way too loud. And the same volume on the ODZ LCD4, for example, would be around 11 o'clock position. So clearly, again, there is more than enough power on tap, even for the most demanding loads out there. However, this little puppy right here, although it sounded absolutely amazing with the HiFiMOS Susvara, it didn't sound as explosive, as unlimited, in terms of soundstage, in terms of dynamics, as its bigger brother AM23R sounded with the Susvara. So except for this pair of headphones, this one sounded pretty much the same like its bigger brother, but not with Susvara, which was slightly lagging behind on this unit right here. If I would never use bass-intensive tracks, modern tunes with the Susvara, with this little amplifier, then I would never call them limited or that something is not as great as it happens on the AM23R. But with bass-intensive tracks, I feel that there is slightly less energy in the bass. Something is just slightly lagging behind in terms of low-end delivery on this amplifier versus its bigger brother AM23R. But everything else, any other set of headphones and anything else but not bass-intensive music sounded really great on this amplifier, which I believe it can provide all the juice you can possibly want. As a hardcore audiophile that understands the inner workings of digital and analog domains, I'm very impressed when I see big boxes that consume a lot of power, fully discrete electronics, amazing power supplies and so on. And I'm not looking with the same eyes at these pocket-sized units that have switching mode power supplies, less impressive electronics, less impressive working principles. And yet, against all odds, this little HPA-23RM is refusing to slow down on some electronica music, on modern tracks. It just pounds like an animal. It's crazy when delivering those bass notes. I am not a bass head. I don't listen to a lot of bass-intensive music, but still I need to test that music with all kinds of amplifiers, and this is one of the very few amplifiers that can provide you that thunder, that kick and impact, but also control all that bass and provide you those layers of low-level information in the bass. So this is what really impresses me with this amplifier. I own several reference-grade headphone amplifiers, and some of them cannot deliver the same impact, and they don't have the same control of the bass, even if those are bigger and they consume a lot more power. So this is what really impresses me with this one, because it can be really scary sounding in the bass with the right set of headphones and with the right music. When I'm switching gears and when I'm switching from electronica, rock, metal, to much slower music like blues, jazz, and it also starts sounding very, very different. And this is really what I like about this one, because it changes its personality from scary to obedient, from fast to slow, from explosive, from punchy to mellow and relaxing. And not a lot of amplifiers can offer you that, but this is one of the few that can offer you that. So you can listen to a wide variety of music and it will be changing its personality depending on the music that is being played. In less than a year, plenty of audio manufacturers started crafting those big battery-operated DAC amp combos, trying to move the heaviest loads out there. That was actually the initial plan. And starting with FireQ7, then moving to ShineLink H7, and then to Xduo XD05 Pro, all of them were very impressive in terms of power, dynamics, trying to blur the line between portable and desktop usage. Those were actually a far cry from those small USB Type-C dongles, especially when it comes to dynamics and to the sheer scale of the sound. Especially the XD05 Pro was very impressive in terms of layering, depth, and soundstage. When moving to this one, it reminds me a lot more, not about those devices, but mostly about its bigger brother, AMP-23R, which was one of the most holographic and just deep sounding solid-state headphone amplifier. This is actually a big surprise because I never experienced and never expected that a battery-operated device can sound so big, so spacious, so impressive in terms of stereo imaging. It's just impressive how holographic it can sound with anything really, but especially with live tunes and open back planar headphones or dynamic headphones. I want to be clear that this is not a perfect unit. It doesn't have a DAC section, so you still need to use an external source, like I'm using this one. It will offer you about 3 to 5 hours of use, so not a very long battery life, but when working as a mobile, or as a desktop headphone amplifier, it will sound like a desktop headphone amplifier. And as I was saying, these two sounded mostly like my big rig 95% of the time, because the sound was always very spacious, very big, very holographic and deep sounding, having just an amazing imaging. Something that I cannot say about portable devices, not all the time, and even a few desktop headphone amplifiers didn't sound as holographic as this one. The final performance was expanding far and wide, and I was turning my head several times, checking out if somebody entered my office. And the end result was an outstanding soundstage and imaging for a solid-state amplifier, and there is nothing more to add in here. Moving on to frequency response, the bass is somewhat of a highlight on Enleum-made amplifiers. It's not really going overboard versus the rest of the frequency response, but it's highly energized, it's thick sounding, it's hard pounding. It really brings the thunder with some bass-intensive tracks. HD800S are far from bass head material, and yet on this amplifier, their stock, boring and mellow sound is really no more. Can those rock hard and kick some serious butt? You bet they do with the right amplifier and with the right music. And knowing how impressive its bigger brother AMP-23R was with bass-intensive music, I expected no less, and this one didn't disappoint. While the bass was highly technical, very fun, very impactful sounding, just amazing, the region that truly conquered my heart was the mid-range region, and it is the most important reason why I bought that AMP-23R in the first place. It was the only solid-state headphone amplifier that could mimic the sound of reference-grade tube amplifiers, and I mean that. It was sweet, it was mellow, very organic, very full-bodied, very natural sounding. It was the only headphone amplifier, solid-state headphone amplifier, that could render piano notes and organ pipes very naturally. This one is really no different. It's exactly as sweet, as mellow, as organic, full-bodied, call it as you want. This is pretty much the best mid-range that I've got from solid-state electronics. And together with that AMP-23R, of course. The treble extends far and wide, and it's pretty much as resolving like those high-end THX AAA designs, like benchmark HPA-4, like NFCA designs, like PLFC designs. It's very clear, very extended in the treble, but it doesn't have any of that treble ringing, fake treble ringing, and nothing of that brightness. And it's quite a paradox, because when you're thinking about the treble being super extended, very sharp sounding, very outlined, you are thinking about a bright sounding amplifier, but this is not. It has a perfect timing in the treble, and that makes the treble real sounding and not fake, because those hi-hats, they need to start and stop at the right time, and this is exactly what this one is doing. Sounding very clear, resolving, very outlined and extended, but also very real without being bright, not even a single bit. Moving on to my conclusions, it so happens that I have in my possession some of the very best portable headphone amplifiers. And I really wish some of them could be comparable with this little Enleum, but except for the power output, everything else that has to do with transient response, tone and timbre, resolution, holography, soundstage cannot be compared. So I'm basically arriving at my very first headphone amplifier review, which is not containing a comparison or two, so please accept my apologies. Although I called it portable / transportable / mobile several times, In truth, this could be your last desktop headphone amplifier that could drive your entire headphone collection, because this is basically the same AM23R with less power without those speaker terminals that provides you an additional current output, and it's running out of battery power. No matter from which angle I'm looking at, $3,000 is a lot of money. However, you cannot put a price on everything. Very few units made me laugh, cry, or exclaim in the middle of the night, and you cannot put a price on that. And it might sound a little out of place, but I do believe it's worth every single penny. It sounds like an AM23R. You are getting 2 sound signatures, plus you can travel with this one, and together with a DAP form a really neat looking Hi-Fi battle station that could challenge the very best desktop rigs out there, getting my well-deserved golden award. Thank you guys for watching. Please consider subscribing. A much longer in-depth review can be found below. Please check that out. And as usual, live a little, be positive, and I'll see you soon.